Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Even we have various dealings amongst each other, and somebody may have the quality of being humble. I've been in stores before, and the person behind the cash register was really humble. But that's material quality, humility, humble. It's not very highly appreciated in the material world. Nobody ever tells their children, now remember, Johnny, be humble. They always tell you, okay, Johnny, be proud, hold your head, put your chin up, be proud. They always tell you to be proud. Humble is not very much appreciated, that quality. So, but anyway, that also is a material quality, humble. So where is the humility of a Vaishnava? What is humble? And it is found, submissive to the order of the Guru. That is real humility. That is real humility. Submissive to the order of our Guru, to his direction, to his instruction. So, sometimes in the course of doing that, following that, we find that, we have to draw swords with the opposite conception. And that is not unwanted or undesirable. It may disturb some people. Some people may say, why all these politics? Why all these politics? Huh? But without soldiering, how you'll become a good soldier? So, Kaviraj Goswami says that controversy should not be avoided. It strengthens the mind. It strengthens our faith. The exercise of controversy. And with any opinion, there is an opposing opinion. There always will be an opposing opinion. Whatever opinion we may have, as an individual or as a group, there'll be an opposing and opposite view. It may not come and clash with us, but there is an opposite view, an opposite opposing idea or conception. So, that is the nature of this world. Challenging spirit is always there. Though we have nothing personal at stake with dealing with any kind of opposite idea. But certainly, if that opposite idea comes to our door, and what to speak of knock, if it starts tearing the door off the hinges, well, then we have to say something. Simply to be quiet, humble, and not say anything, that is not real humility. That is rather avoiding one's duty. But that doesn't mean one has to be mean and nasty in the process, although sometimes showing a good bear's growl keeps the enemy at a distance. One day, Bimal Prasad said, there's a rumor that you carry a big knife. I said, knife? I said, I carry an automatic. So let them take that message back and go, the rumor about the knife? It ain't true. He carries hardware. One devotee told somebody, said, well, if you go down there and if you see them, there's certain things you definitely don't say. Or, Narasingha Maharaj just might start pounding on you right on the spot. I would never do that. But I'm very glad that they think that I would. Because then that keeps such unfriendly elements at a distance. So that's the cobra showing his hood. Actually, I'm just an old toothless cobra. I couldn't hit anybody. But I might then think that I could. So, different people will go about their duty in different ways. Just like there in Govindaji Gardens, one day the fisherman came. And I had to make that fisherman believe that he could bring his whole team of men here from his village and they would all die on the spot. I told them, go say goodbye to your daughters, your children, and your wives, and come here to die. So dealing with the fishermen, if you don't push them out, they'll push their way in. So they were a small group, and they went away, and they never bothered us since. But they came, the chief of the fishermen came to the gate with a couple of his men to complain. So I made him think that I would do that for sure. But I would never do that. So sometimes we have to do it. We have to make believe that we're not soft. When you're moving in the world, if you're very soft with people, they'll just step all over you. They'll take you. They take softness, gentle behavior as weakness. So you have to keep up a little shell. You have to keep up a little shell from that outside world. But we should not keep that shell in dealing with the devotees. With devotees, we have to let down that shell or that barrier and deal most affectionately with the devotees. So yes, it's true. In doing duty, one has to preach. Doing one's duty means one has to preach. Preach means one has to oppose. But we like to keep things on a philosophical basis. This is a philosophical movement. This is the movement of the philosophy of love. And that comes down to the philosophy of this world, and so many things are understood there. But ultimately it is a divine philosophy of love. Not just an armchair philosophy of logic and argument and so many things like that. But we try to keep things away from a personal level. And we actually have no enmity towards those people, any such person. There's no inimical feelings. As I said this morning, sometimes there is a show of anger, but it's not really anger. That anger, Kroda, the devouring enemy of self-realization, Kama and Kroda, lust and anger. And the example is that when anger grips, it just doesn't go away like that. It leaves your chest actually heaving, it's called. It gets a weird feeling in your body, poisonous actually. Anger is poison. When persons are very angry, it creates an adrenaline. It is poisonous. But someone may show anger in the course of their duty. Well, that is another thing. That is called a show of anger. This is not really anger. That is not the all-devouring enemy of self-realization. That may be performed in the course of one's duty. But one has to be careful, and I've seen over the years, there would be somebody strong, Kshatriya type, we used to say the Kshatriya type devotee, and somebody would come, doing a little mischief around the temple. And then this person, Kshatriya type devotee, would then vent all his anger, frustration on this poor half-drunk individual or something. And just, go over the edge. Give that person a strong beating or something like that. And then there would be the excuse that they were messing around with the Sankirtan card, or they were doing something like that. But you could see in many cases it was obvious that this was way out of line of service. This film, this Kumbh Mela film, the little boy does the martial arts. Listen to what's being said. He's speaking in Hindi. He's saying, in 1 minute, a martial arts demonstration, and the boy does the swords. You didn't see that, didn't you? I just saw it. And then he said, and then, I don't know exactly the term, but he would hear, Krishna Bhagavan Seva. He said, and basically what he's saying is, and this martial arts is also used in the service of Krishna. Not just painting arts, also the martial arts, all knowledge, all technique, everything, music, everything used for Krishna. But that's the question. Is it for Krishna or is it just for me? Is there a show of anger? Am I defending what I feel to be an assault against our movement against the philosophy, or have I succumbed to some lower mode of nature in that, and actually it is at that time not for Krishna. So that you will know better than anybody else. The individual will know that of himself, provided the individual is truthful with himself. Oh, that's what the point was. Once we drove to Mayapur, then from Mayapur we drove to Vrindavan in that truck. I think that was the year we met. Like, we came in that truck. So there was a devotee with us from Trivandrum named Padmanabha, and a Kerala devotee, ISKCON devotee, disciple of Jayapataka Maharaj, I think. And when we stopped in Benares, we rented the boats. If you've ever been to Benares, and you go out on the Ganga there, and the Ganga is very blue and very clear there, and there are porpoises in the water. And it's quite a place. And the city is 3 miles long along the river, and it's all stone steps and temples, and it's an ancient city. It's considered the oldest living city in the world. And, so we rent these boats, and boatman takes you out there, and then we used to just tell him, just stop the boat. There's big rowboats, 10 or 12 devotees, and just float along the skyline in Benares and have Chaitanya Charitamrita class, for Chaitanya Charitamrita, have a little kirtan on the boat. It's quite a romantic type of atmosphere, you know. And so in the course of the class, I started in on the Mayavadis. And to this one devotee, it looked like I was doing a bit of Mayavadi bashing. You see, I was quite critical about the Mayavadis and pointing out that there are 2,000 or 3,000 of them in this city, and they don't actually have the right to wear the saffron cloth because they are atheists. They are pasandis. They are offenders. So this devotee he said, why Maharajas? They're saints. Well, they're Mayavadi, but they're saints and they're sadhus. Well, why Maharaj is so heavy against them? And this troubled his mind, I said. Troubled his mind. And on the way to Vrindavan, he shared that troubled mind with Adikesha. Remember Adikesha? He shared that mind with Adikesha. Then in Vrindavan, he stayed about 2 days, and he seemed a little distant. It was Kartik time. And then he announced that he was leaving, going back to Kerala. So, well, whatever. I didn't know that there was any trouble. Right? So then he left. Then the next day, Bhagavatam class, I forget where we were reading in Bhagavatam. The verse was such, and then the purport was such, it was said that if one does not preach against the Mayavadi philosophy, he will fall down in devotional service. That was the gist of the purport. Then after the class, Adi Keshava came and he said, oh, that was amazing. You know? I said, what was that? He said, well, Padmanabha left this morning. I said, yeah, I know. He always told me. I asked him, he said he was leaving or whatever. He said, yeah, the reason he left is because you were too heavy about the Mayavadis when we were in Benares. And I recalled the class that I gave him. I said, well, true. It's one's duty to preach against those things. He goes, yeah, we heard this morning. If one doesn't preach against that Mayavadi philosophy, one will fall down. So I thought, well, yes, of course. If you don't have to run out, okay, that's it. You got the message now. Everybody out the door and go down to the post office and grab the purse and go, Mayavadi is bad. It's obvious. It means if you come across it, if Mayavadi crosses your path, you see, then it's your duty to preach against it, not soham and allow it on, you see. So, anyway, that's not to say he fell down because of that. He didn't fall down, he just left. It troubled his mind. So he could not understand what it means to be gentle, what it means to be tolerant. He thought one should be tolerant of things which are intolerable. That word exists also, intolerable. Tolerant and then intolerable. So everything is not tolerant. Some things are intolerable. Krishna is that way. Also the devotee is that way. Certain things are intolerable. They cannot be tolerant. So Once Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wrote a letter to a devotee. It's in this big book. And apparently the devotee had written, and he had taken the liberty to criticize other devotees in the mud, in the ashram, about either their management or something. You see, something was going along. But he wasn't the manager himself. He'd just taken the liberty. You follow? So, then the reply is published in the Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada book. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wrote back, and the gist of his letter, I remember this part of it, he acknowledges that he's received these complaints, and then he says, I cannot understand for the life of me why you would want the position to criticize others. It is so much better just to go on with your devotional service, chanting the name and doing your service. Why would you want this position to have to ridicule others? So in this way, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was telling him, you haven't been given this service. You're not asked to manage. Just serve. Just do your service. What? In other words, he's expressing, this is not a pleasant task. This is not a pleasant task. And I've experienced many things like that. It is not a pleasant task to sometimes have to correct a devotee. It is not pleasant to have to deal with opposing devotees. They're also devotees. They're also Vaishnavas. It is not something that one relishes. And those who don't have that duty, why would they want to go out and look for this thing? This is once again, there's a distasteful aspect about it. Nonetheless, it has to be done. The weeds have to be pulled. The jungle has to be cut. Otherwise, it will consume us. Maharaja also means, actually the question is raised, why do you call a sannyasi a Maharaja? The king is called Maharaja. He's the Raj, Maharaj, the great king. So why a sannyasi and a king? They're not even supposed to meet and talk together. They're at the opposite ends of this world. The king, the most worldly. Some king's 500 wives. That's a worldly man. And the sannyasi lives in the forest. What do these two have in common? They're not even supposed to meet and talk, actually. And why is the sannyasi called a Maharaj? It seems like a little awkward. So somewhere in Bhagavatam, I forget where, Srila Prabhupada in one purport, he takes the time to explain there that Maharaja means great king, and the great king, he shows his valor on the battlefield, and he is the defender of his kingdom, and he defeats opposing elements that come to endanger his subjects. In so many words, he explains it. He says, and similarly, a sannyasi is called Maharaja because he has the duty to defend the devotional, and I'm paraphrasing, devotional conceptions, the devotional community against opposing elements. He has to fight against the waves of Maya and help protect the devotees. So it kind of comes along with the dress, the fighting with opposition. And on that side, it is said that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta declared totalitarian war against every conception, misconception, and all theistic conceptions also. He picked a grievance everywhere with everything. Now there's so many devotees nowadays, they'll say, well, first of all, why would he do that? Well, he wanted to isolate the situation so you could see what this is, what Krishna consciousness is. You can find harmony, Krishna consciousness in so many things. And generally that's the path which devotees take in preaching in the world. But in India, where it comes from, the necessity of the time was to show that Krishna consciousness has its own distinct contribution to the world, which has never come down before in a divine succession. Mahaprabhu's contribution was unknown to the world. So elimination, so that it would stand alone and be seen. That type of thing. So generally we'll say Jesus is also our guru. There are types of things like this, articles, statements, many things. Well, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was asked, what are the comparisons between Christianity and Vaishnavism? You know what his reply was? It's printed in, what book is that? It's a book called Sri Caitanya, I think. It's many lectures of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He said, oh, what is that? It was one Professor Sutter from Ohio University, 1927, in Calcutta, interviewing Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And he asked him, what are the similarities? what is the word? Similarity, or what is the word? It means, like similarity. What are the similarities between Christianity and Vaishnavism? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, there are none. Christianity is a mundane religion. It came from the mundane world. It came from a place called Jerusalem. And Krishna consciousness descended from Goloka, the spiritual sky. There is no comparison. No, he was gentle and kind about it. And actually, if you study that, you'll see Sutter's was already on his side. It was just for the sake of the interview. Sutter's had been coming to the ashram for months. And, one time they found a lady she was a librarian in Pittsburgh. And she had met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta when she was very young. She had gone on a tour in relation to her education or something like that. And she had written an article when she came back to America in some newspaper that she met such an elevated gentleman. I forget her exactly statement. And anyway, it was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So there were a few foreigners from the Western world that had met him. So this type of explanation is also given, pointing out that Dharmantu Shakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. Real religion doesn't come from this world. It's not born out of this world. Real religion comes down from the spiritual world. So the other day, I've said this many times to the devotees, and it's an eyebrow raiser. It's like, what is the evidence there was a person named Jesus? And that's just like, come on. Prabhupada said even Jesus was good. Sri Maharaj mentioned things about him. I said, no, I'm just saying. I've heard that there are many people, not people, educated people, scholars, and they say they have proof there isn't anybody named Jesus. And I saw that documentary on the airplane. It was like not a documentary, it was a conversation of scholars, and they were raising this point. And this man was saying, at an intellectual level, at a college level, a degree level, there is no evidence that there was an individual named Jesus. And they just went into all the different things. Two or three people, just like, but you can do the same thing about Vyas. Which Vyas? There are many Vyasas. Therefore, Dvaipayana Vyas means the one at the beginning of this Kalpa who wrote the Vedas. That's why he's called Dvaipayana. But he's a Vyasa. There have been many Vyasas. Well, maybe many persons. I don't take it as an issue. I'm happy to do a documentary, the life of Jesus in India, and be fine. I don't want to split the straw with him. But some people have that, even that doubt. But in any case, religious principles are not something that's come up from this world. It is something that has come down to this world. I have an expression, when a transcendental yes, that's it. When a transcendental religion gets corrupted, then it becomes an established religion in this world, like Christianity, Judaism, Catholicism, and so many others. But when it's alive and vibrant, they crucify you. And when it's corroded, they establish it all over the state. Christianity didn't become successful until after it became corroded. Actually, It was corroded as soon as it was adopted by the Romans. They corroded the whole thing. Corrupted and corroded. And they had to do it more and more and more repeatedly over time. So once, Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter and he said, we asked him about preaching to Christians. We were in Salt Lake, we had gone somewhere, Salt Lake City, we were preaching to Mormons, and we had gone somewhere that was Christian. I forget where it was. I guess the next state over. I can't even remember where it was. When we came back, we asked him about preaching to Christians. He wrote a kind of a shocking letter. He said, I have been all over the world, and as far as I have seen, there are no Christians anywhere in the world. So how is it you'll be preaching to them? He said, the first commandment is, thou shalt not kill, and they are all eating meat. He said, but if you do meet a Christian, he said, there'll be no difficulties. We were Christians. We were from Christian families and everything, so it was kind of funny Prophets telling us. But if you do meet a Christian, it's like you're talking to one. It used to be one anyway. So he said, if you do meet one, there will be no problem, because Christian means lover of God, he said. And when one lover of God meets another lover of God, there is never any difficulty. There is never any problem. So, in philosophy, there is the plane of argument, you see. With devotees, we don't have to argue with each other to understand something. It's another way of discussing. But when preaching outside and dealing with so many other things, an argument will come. So argument is a peculiar thing. You can argue a point this way. You can argue the same argument this way. Argument is very elastic. It can go this way. It can go that way. It has the utility to convince the other party to accept your line of thought. That's what an argument is for. Not argument for argument's sake. It's stubbornness. Some people argue, they're so stubborn. And even if they're shown that they're wrong, they just keep arguing. They're just so stubborn. So we can't go out preaching and arguing and all these things just for the sake of the argument, just to oppose others. But if indeed there is a calling to do that, then we'll have to do that. Srila Sridhar Maharaj was one not to engage in the battle. He said, I will not be there for the battle. I will not be there for the war. But one day when one Gaudiya Mat Sannyasi in Mayapur wrote a critical statement about our Guru Maharaj Srila Prabhupada in a book, in an introduction to one of his books, he took a slap. And this came to Sagar Maharaj's notice. Many people read it and saw this. And they told Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, because it has come to your hand, it's right here in front of you, and it is criticism of your Guru, you must say something. You cannot remain silent. So, somebody says so many things about me, and whatever. I'm not so disturbed about it. In fact, usually I'm not disturbed about it at all. Somebody tells me that Prabhupada knew everything. He knew the children were being molested. He knew the murders were taking place. He knew everything. He did nothing to interfere. Now you've got me really pissed off. I can't tolerate that. And I'll do my share of shouting about it and opposing. But if they say something about me personally, okay, you're a bunch of fools. So, but if our Guru is, if it is at his expense, then we have to do something. And if we just tolerate those types of things, then we will lose our footing, we'll lose our ground in devotion. We will not be able to do Guru Manubhishta, what is it? Manubhishta. Guru Manubhishta. We will not be able to do intimate service to our Guru if we allow those types of things to go unchecked. Well, at least we have to say the opposite conclusion, whatever it may be, what we feel to be the right conclusion. But we shouldn't allow malice to become part of that. Nonetheless, quite irritated by the state. So anyway, something like that. Did you find that place?
No, Marsh, I'll have to get back to you about it.
You see.
I have to read notes at home.
On the same point, someone on the outside, looking in, might argue logically how you can spread a philosophy of love in a fighting spirit. How is that possible?
I don't know if if you're ready to hear this one. There was one of the Alwars, was the sword of Vishnu. The Alwars are 12 associates of Lord Vishnu who descended from the spiritual world. They're also giving bhakti, Vaikuntha bhakti. Tirumangai Alvar, he was the incarnation of the sword of Vishnu. He wrote in his prayers that killing Buddhists is bhakti yoga. It's a classic. We definitely don't want to spread that one. But these things were there in ancient times.
Alright. That's why, is that why swords are called talwars?
What is that?
Is that why the Indian sword, those curved scimitars, are called a talwar?
Talwar, that means sword, but what?
But because you're saying alwar.
No, well, there might be a connection.
Alwar,
I don't know. Talwar. Sounds something might be there, but not being a good Sanskritist, I couldn't say. But I'll see. I'll ask about that. So, how do you spread this is like Allah, huh? Raise the sword and spread the word. We're not raising swords on anybody. We're not doing that. Neither are we preaching the philosophy of the Alwars, although there were many nice things in there. This is definitely a different world we live in now. Now is the world of the rational thought. Rationalism entered the world. There used to be, the whole world was in a subjective consciousness. It was a different world, a long time ago. Now we view everything different. Everything is viewed different. So, we don't go out to spread love with argument or anything like that, actually. We only deal with opposition with such things, if there's opposition. How do you save the person from a cancerous tumor without cutting them? Give them a lot of herbs, I guess, right? But, if you spare the patient the knife, the patient may die. If you don't lance the boil, then it just goes on infecting the blood. You have to release that. So that may look, look at he's cutting that man! It's just like, if he doesn't cut it, then he's gonna let it out, let the poison out. So something of that nature, some argument, some clash of that type may be there. Well, they'll try to kill the poor man. It was Lenin or Stalin said, if you don't crack a few eggs, you can't make an omelet. Problem is, he was talking about people. And he killed so many people, that man. He just killed so many people. He's one of the big demons of the world, I guess. And thousands and hundreds of thousands of people he sent to the death to make his communist omelet, his communist conception. Bopot was another one. He figured the world is wrong, there's a problem. And anybody that knows any part of it is part of the problem. The beauty is in the children, they don't know nothing, and they'll just grow up and learn everything the right way. They'll forget about all these things if we eliminate the people that know about all these things. He had a real tight circle of thinking. This thing, when it expanded, killed something like, I don't know, they say 6 million people or more. Bopot. Is he still alive? Pol Pot.
See?
No.
He
Recently accidentally died. That's happened 3 or 4 times. And then he's been still alive. Horrible. Horrible thing. There have been many people like that. So, Not bad. You can't go out. Practice what you preach is very important. You can't go out to people, abuse them, and say, we've got the higher philosophy. Though we're showing you only our lower behavior. Don't forget we have the higher philosophy. That won't be. People expect to see the preacher, a lady, or a gentleman, not a ruffian. There are a lot of criticisms about the Krishna consciousness movement over the last 30 years. But they got all you people sitting here and about another 20,000 around the world over the years. Couldn't have been that bad. Couldn't have been that bad. When they said, but Prabhupada, they're forcing the books on people and they throw the books in the garbage can. One devotee in Hawaii said, they said they throw the books in the garbage can. Prabhupada said they throw their children in the garbage can. To speak of my books. God sends them a baby and they abort it and throw it in a garbage can. He wasn't at all fazed. We're doing something, these people were disturbing so much they throw their book in the garbage can. They throw their children in the garbage can. He wasn't moved by their line of argument at all. They came with this real soft shoe approach. He was quite firm. Somebody may find some fault in it. When Jesus, they say when he entered the chapel or wherever it was, I saw something on that too. It's not there anymore. That's what it is. It's in Jerusalem. There's a top of a hill, it was the biggest place of worship on the earth at the time, at least that part of the earth. And later it was just leveled flat. The only thing that's left is the floor. It's the whole top of a mountain. You know anything about that?
Temple on the Mount.
Yeah, Temple on the Mount, or what it was called. That's the one that Jesus went into. And that's where the gold coins, you'd have to come with your Roman gold coins, which had the emperor's pictures on them, and trade them at the trading tables, and get the offerable gold coins that then the rabbis or whatever they were called could offer, in the worship. And of course, you didn't get the same amount. There's a little profit there for the exchange rate. You lost something in that. And then there was other things. There were animals for sale there because they were doing animal sacrifices. And all these things. Jesus is portrayed throughout to be solemn and holy, walking barefooted in robes, and a little unkept, indifferent to the world, not caring much for his personal grooming or anything. Just a simple man. When he got inside there, man, he let it rip. He started turning over tables and smashing things. He was really upset, whoever he was. Whoever they were, he was really upset on that day. So that's to be expected to see such abuse. But generally, the devotee doesn't take upon himself to, enforce that type of not enforce. Not say it wrong. He doesn't take it upon himself to, enforce justice. Doesn't take the law into his own hands. And finding the situation intolerable, then he goes away. He goes somewhere else. But in that particular time, he got very upset. There have been other stories and these things also in Krishna consciousness. This is the nice thing. Like, call the police, there's a man outside. What would you do if there's 300,000 Muslims? There's one of our documentaries, it's called Atrocities. And Giri Maharaj has not the whole file, he's got a file of the atrocities performed by the Muslim invaders in India. They have numbers of heads they cut off. The numbers of women and children they killed is just phenomenal. What are you supposed to do on that day? What are you supposed to do? Be humble? Now, there were people that didn't even understand. Some people thought, oh, the deity will finish them when they get here. There was a place called Somnath. The Brahmins thought Mahadev will come out of the sky and finish him. If I'd have been there, I'd say, come on, pack your bags, let's get going now, bury the deity and let's go, you know. No, he'll come from the sky and finish them Muslims. And the Muslims just came in and just scraped the place down to the ground and killed everybody. So we can't abandon practical intelligence either. If something is physically going to harm us, and then they see what we're made out of. What lead's made out of. Whatever you got to do. You know? When there were problems in Mayapur, Srila Prabhupada got the gun. And they came and said, okay, we have the gun, official gun, registered gun, shotgun. He said, now go on the roof and fire it so they know that we have it. But when Srila Sridhar Maharaj was asked, should they get a gun for the money? He said, if you get a gun, then the gunman is coming. The gun will attract the gun. If you have the gun, definitely the gunman is coming. So I asked the devotee, what do you mean the gunman is coming? So there were different opinions. The gunman will come to get that gun. He needs one more gun, and you got one, he'll come to get it. Srila Sridhar Maharaj is not very small. His gun is huge. It's a 3-story building. There's almost a football field on the top of that building. It was so big. I mean, it was pretty big. It was the biggest building in Bengal at one time, outside of Calcutta. So there were opposites. One, get the gun and fire it. Let them know you have it. The other is, don't get the gun. That will attract the gunman. And one devotee, he bought a gun because his life was threatened. His name was Giri. His name was Bhakti something Giri. So he was attacked brutally. His life was threatened when the whole thing was over and the people that did it were arrested. He bought himself a gun here in America. So the word spread back to Srila Sridhar Maharaj that he bought a gun. He was attacked brutally and now he's bought a gun. So Sridhar Maharaj said. So now he is Canon Giri. Canon Giri. Bhakti Canon. So he said, so now he is Canon Giri. So then they said, then he said, you please tell him to come to see me in India. So they sent him the message. Some days later, he came to India. And when he came to see Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Sridhar Maharaj said, so you bought a gun? Yes, Guru Maharaj, I bought a gun. He said, you brought it with you? He said, no, you cannot bring it with you. You can't pack a gun internationally. He didn't know so much about those rules. And so he said, you don't need a gun. You don't need a gun. The person who was responsible for the assault, give it to him. You go and give him the gun. It happened to be I don't say this because the camera's running, but anyway, quite a well-known person. He said, you give him the gun. So, if you just go and give a gun to somebody in this country, you could be arrested. That could be taken as a threat of your own. If you just go to somebody who's known to be your enemy and go, here. What's that mean? I'm going to need it, So he didn't follow that instruction of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. He went back and he sold the gun. But he still retains the nickname Canon Giri. So, different situations, depends. Different situations. Different rule may be applied. Okay, any other question here?
On a related note, if you're preaching on a personal level with somebody, suppose they have a particular religion, you could go either way. You could point out likenesses, or you could point out differences. How do you judge which
Well,
way to go?
There are two things you don't do at parties. You don't talk about religion or politics. There are two things you don't do at work. Don't talk about religion or politics. If it's outside of work and outside of a party, well, then it depends, It depends on the nature of the person. Should you go the side of similarity, or should you go the side of opposites? Huh? Gee, that's a tough one, I mean, where are they? Out on the street? We used to sell books to people in, where was that? Oh, South Africa. And you'd be looking at the book, and the person would be like trying to look around the back of your head, stretching their neck to see our seekers. And I gave it my best one day and told this guy everything I just right from my heart about this Krishna consciousness in this book. I guess it was Bhagavad Gita or something. Yeah, it was Bhagavad Gita. And he goes, and then I asked him for a donation. And he said, no, can't give you a donation. I said, why? Because I'm a Christian. I said, you can't give me a donation because you're a Christian, follower of Jesus. He goes, that's right. I said, if Jesus came down this street right now and met me, he would empty his pockets and give me every dime he had. Because he's a real Christian. And I thought he would. If Jesus came down the street and heard what's going on, what's going on in this Hare Krishna movement, the preaching, what all these young boys and girls are up to, what they're doing. He'd shave up on the spot. He'd be coming back to the temple as a bhakta. Those totally surrendered souls or something. He wouldn't go, no, can't help you. Actually, we were collecting money to send to India for the Bangladesh, the food program in Mayapur. And we had our pictures and everything. I said, look, we're feeding people. No, can't help those starving little kids. I'm a Christian. No, real Christian wouldn't say that. Wouldn't do that. No, it depends on the individual. It's the age of the person. I'd say if it's an older person, I'd go with the harmony, showing the similarities. If it's a younger person, it's just like break the ties. Just tell them, this is a cheating religion. Just face it. There was cheating going on. Why are the doors always locked? Churches, places of worship, supposed to be open. It's not a thing you do on Sunday. This is life. This has, you try to convince them because they're young. They're not that old person. You try to change them. It's really hard. What's old and change? Past 30 to 35. It's too old, too old to change. Most people really get set in their ways by that time. Very hard to change. Or to speak of when they're very old. It happens sometimes. Sometimes some devotees' moms or dads just turn up, and just with a bead bag. Yeah, there have been many. Shravananda's mother and so many people really get into it. But mostly not. Of course, now some of us are in the category of the old. We're not the young anymore. So, but that's what I would recommend. If it's an older person, you go with the harmony. If it's younger, just be a little more revolutionary because young people are more prone to revolutionary. They're prone to change. And it depends on the country. You go to Russia to preach. Wherever you go, wherever anybody goes there, there's so many people attend the programs, you can't get them in the door. There are thousands of devotees in Russia. I mean, like it was in America maybe 25 years ago. More, actually. It's much bigger in Russia than it ever was in this country. The numbers are poor. A lot of people don't even have water in their houses. They got to go bring water in jars and buckets and whatever. They don't have water. A lot of devotees live in apartments. In apartments where their main living is, they don't have water. They have to go other places. They have no plumbing in certain places for whatever the reasons. I didn't ask, but I was told. Sudhir Goswami's preaching in Russia. He was telling me about it. He's saying these people are so sincere, so enthused. Everywhere he goes, they just go to these places so far away. Get off and there's somebody to meet him at the train station. Go and they arrange a place for him to stay, usually with water, and then they have a program and these people just turn up. It's quite incredible. A lot of those parts of the world. So it depends on where you are. The Greeks, it's another thing.
Calling the Pope the Antichrist.
Poland also is very big. Poland is like huge preaching devotees. Serbia was also huge. Then that war started just ruining everything in a sense. It started and the whole thing went on it's been going on for over 10 years and right up to the last. But there were many, many devotees from those countries, and some of those places are small. Italy, all those places. So it depends on the cultural background of the person, the age of the person. So many things.
Jiva souls being tested again and again by Krishna. And obviously it's not for Krishna's benefit because he knows what the abilities are, the conditioned souls are at. It's for the conditioned souls themselves.
Seems like he's holding something up here and saying, jump for it, we jump for it, and it's like 30 foot straight down. That type of God is there. Right? He's watching the living entities jump for it, and then boom. I saw this one cartoon. It's like, it shows this guy at his desk. He's like, oh God, why me? It's like the bill collector's taking away his furniture. His wife and kids are they're out the door with the suitcases. Life's this, the bill collector's like taking the picture off the wall. Total foreclosure. And he's just like, oh God, why me? And then the next frame over, he's like looking up in the sky, and there's this big hand comes in, and then it's this big hairy arm goes, because you pissed me off. So only at a certain level is Krishna conscious of the jivas. Only when the jivas get to a certain level is Krishna actually conscious of those jivas. Otherwise, they're in the loving care of Mahamaya, and Krishna is not directly conscious of those jivas at that time.
How about the super soul?
A super soul is there. Super soul. He said Krishna.
Yeah.
Krishna playing the flute. Before Krishna playing the flute is conscious of the jiva. That jiva has to be quite elevated. But Krishna's agency is his super soul. He's there everywhere, always with the living entity, wherever he wanders in this world. Always there, a friend by the side. It's like somebody wants to do something, and the father goes along, accompanies that boy to do whatever he wants to do. Kind of always right there, like, sure, this is what you want to do, or, could do something different if you want. He's always there to, peck an idea at them, but he doesn't want to interfere. I mean, you see parents are that way nowadays all the time. I mean, the president's daughter got caught drinking. She's 17 years old. And the president's wife says, well, we don't want to interfere in the young lady's private life. It's like, private life? She's 17 years old, out driving and drinking. What do you mean? You don't want to interfere in her private life? What a lame duck, response. It's like people don't care anymore. But that's like, don't want to get in their way, and it's just all this. Yeah, don't get in their way. And the next thing, she'll go head on into a telephone pole. Take that young lady aside and show her the wheel and the bottle, and let her know these two things don't mix. So that kind of liberality is, So Krishna is always trying to, But he doesn't totally interfere with the independence of the living entity. He gives that independence and then is there as a subtle voice in the background. That's the super soul. One day, this devotee came to me and he goes, well, yeah, I was, I saw him. The last time I saw him was a brahmachari, and then the next time I saw him, he was a householder. We were quite good friends at the time in India. And so it was fine with me. But I was this young sannyasi, and he was a brahmachari. So then he was married, and he goes, yeah, it was just, what to do. I goes, Lord Balaram's arrangement. I was like, it was? He goes, yeah, my wife every day my wife now, before she was my wife, she was praying to Lord Balaram every day that, she would get me as her husband. And, Lord Balaram would just answer her prayers. I forget exactly my choice of words, but I just boom, put my hand on his shoulder and said, I said something. I can't remember exactly, but it's something like, in a very like stern way, I told him, Krishna never listens to nonsense prayers like that. It's like, if you want his attention, you're going to have to pray for something a little higher than a husband or a wife. Those things are available everywhere. Pray or not pray, you'll get one. So the gopis are praying to get Krishna as their husband. And they're going to Katyayani, the goddess. Katyayani. That's another thing. Or even to Lord Shiva sometimes. There's a cultural tradition, girls should pray to Lord Shiva to get a good husband. There was this place in the forest, remember in Subramania? There's this tree, and then there's all this, on the Muddy Gundi River, there was all this paraphernalia, some tridents, and the devotees go, wow, look at that place, it looks ancient. I said, don't go over there. That's where the ladies pray to get a husband. Just kind of walked around. I mean, it sounded like if you walk over there, you cross that line, disappear. Lord Shiva takes you somewhere and puts you in somebody's care. So, the young man should have a good wife, the young girl should have a good husband. You don't have to pray to Krishna for that. So, in other words, the Supreme Lord is in his own plane of enjoyment. And we shouldn't flatter ourselves to think that this, 1 second existence in Maya, which we call this fabulous long lifetime of 100 years, is not even a millibreath of Vishnu. We flatter ourselves that he is going to be right with us through all this suffering and nonsense and just be right there at every second. It's a little bit over-flattering. But I should say the super soul is there. He won't. Do you follow what I'm saying? Krishna in Goloka never leaves Goloka. He is not sitting out there playing his flute and performing his pastimes with the cowherd boys, and then they sit down, and then he goes, God, there's this, how many 100 million, billion, trillion, quadrillion, bazillion living entities are down there? It's not like that.
But what I've meant is that the Jiva soul nature seems to be essentially just tested.
Yeah.
To be tested.
Yeah, that's there. There's a thing where it says that Prahlad is greater than Lakshmi. Lakshmi is Ladini Shakti. It's the Vaikuntha expansion of the internal potency. It's just Shakti, internal potency. And so how, why Prahlad is said to be greater? Sridhar said because Prahlad can be tested. He could fall down, in the sense he's a tatastha jiva, marginal jiva. They can succumb to Maya, but Lakshmi can't. She couldn't fall down if she wanted to. Those Shaktis can't mix with, they can't dance with Maya. There's nothing there. And Krishna also doesn't mix with Maya. There's some story where they say that Balaji, the deity Balaji, Srinivas, married Sita Maya. Did what? Balaji, Vishnu, Bhagavan, Narayan, married Maya Sita. Ashram Maharaj's nose was wrinkling. Then they said, well, the story is because Mother Sita was so pleased by the service of Maya Sita, she gave a benediction that Vishnu would accept her as actually as his consort. Shrimasi, a fancy creation. He said, Vishnu Tattva Krishna, and he just went through the list like that, does not coerce with Maya. There is no Ras. Krishna is Anandamoya Ras. He's always enjoying Ras. There is no Ras with material nature. So he's not going to marry Maya Sita. Maya Sita was Maya. Not a living entity. It was Maya. So anyway, Lakshmi cannot be tested. But Prahlad can be tested. And Jiva can be tested. In passing that test or surmounting that obstacle, then a certain greatness is shown. What is usually shown is the bond between the Lord and his devotees. That is what is shown. Should we think life should be this placid existence where nothing happens? Are you kidding me when somebody says, America just dropped bombs on somebody? It's like, everybody turns on the TV, goes online, CNN, and it's just like, everybody loves a good war. In the old days, they used to go out in their horse and buggies, ladies in their bonnets and big skirts, and sit up there on the hill and watch the Civil War take place. When the rebels first attacked Washington, D.C., you ever see that enactment? Everybody goes out to watch the Yanks kick the rebels' butt. But it went around the other way. And the cannons got a little wild and started blowing up buggies, and it was a little messy. But the public went out to watch the war. All through Europe it used to be that way in the colonial period and all. There's going to be a battle, and on the sides would be all the people, picnic baskets. I mean, the Romans had it right down to a Sunday sport. The gladiators. For centuries. You know, it's like, people say there's something evil in us, the human being, that they like this thing. But the fact is, everybody likes a controversy. Everybody takes note of these things. So, and what can you say? Krishna created the whole Kurukshetra scenario. And just for one reason. Just to show his favor to his devotees. Under no uncertain terms, let it be known, I favor my devotees. And to show you, I'm going to take out some, how much was it? Some 30 millions of people or something. The only people that walked out of that were the Pandavas. It's just a drama. Don't get all hung up on it. Do the right thing when you're in it, but don't lose the plot and think that, this is it. Because sure, I told this one thing. This is a real hard one to get. He heard his Guru Maharaj say, when the tiger is eating a man, the tiger is enjoying, and so is the man. And everybody. I have this on film. He goes into great depth to explain that he said, like in a good drama, one man is killing, the other man is being killed, but if the man being killed acts his part properly, he is also enjoying. So ultimately, all living entities are enjoying it. It's just like in this world. But we think, that's very, very bad. But we're just absorbed in the plot here. But it's just like taking off a dirty shirt and throwing it in the wash. Just get a new one. It's not the big drama that we make it out to be. The drama part is forgetting Krishna, not knowing what's going on. And certainly there's fear in the living entity, fear of death. But it's quite unnatural. It does not need to be. And that is considered to be one of the first hurdles that a devotee crosses over. And that's the haunting fear of death. Somebody don't have any fear of death. Some people they seemingly have no fear of death, or they're just ignorant. Or they're just stupid. But they have a saying, there are no atheists on the battlefield. I mean, we see a few guns go off on a firing range, but in a battlefield, it's a little bit like they showed in that, what was it? Saving Private Ryan. Whoa, what a horrific sound. And I've never been on the battlefield. I don't care to go on the battlefield. But they say there are no atheists out there. So maybe it's not a bad place to be, no atheists. But it means that even the big hardies, you know, they get right down on their knees and cry and pray when all that's going on. You know. So if one has God consciousness, then that's the first great hurdle that one goes over and is free from. That is the fear of death, the uncertainty. The uncertainty of existence. The thing we fear the most is to lose our existence. But we're informed our existence is eternal. That is already there. It's just in what state we're going to exist. What plane, what condition, what status will we maintain? But existence is there, guaranteed. Never was a time when you and I and all these kings, Krishna told Arjuna, never was there a time when we did not exist. All exist eternally. I have my individuality, the Supreme Being. You have your individuality, the individual part and parcel. All exist eternally. But then the question is, well, what status will we exist? So that uncertainty, there is a great fear in the living entity. There is a safe side. And it is there, mentioned in Sri Rama's book, that when the genuine taste arises, ruchi comes after nishta. Nishta comes after anartha-nivritti. So when the genuine taste of the holy name arises, the genuine taste, and it's not that, well, that was just really sweet, and then we don't get back around to it till the next Ratha Yatra. You know, well, we weren't really tasting the sweetness. The wine and the sweet wine of the holy name is extremely addictive. We taste that sweetness, we want it again and again, we don't want to give it up. But Srila Ramar said, then we enter the plane of safety. We are safe if we have a taste for that sweet wine of the holy name. But if we have no taste, then we're not safe, and there'll always be so many tests. And I mean, I mentioned, I'm not flattering myself or anything, but sometimes devotees get so moody. I mean, their mood swings are like summer and winters in Vermont. You know? I asked one of them, I said, am I like that? Do I like one day like way over here, and this day like way over here? I said, in my self-portrait of myself, I get up every day and do the same thing. I don't get up when I'm down, and the next day I get up and I'm chipper. I just get up every day and I do the same thing. I won't tell you exactly all the steps that I take before I get up, but I pray deep in my heart every day before I even stand up that I can go forward in Krishna consciousness. It's the only thing that matters to me. And I see other people that just go, one, they're so involved, they're here, and this and that. And then this side, like swinging, you know. What's the necessity of it? You know? Young people are trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives. My latest take on that is, you don't have a life. You only have the chance to become alive. Because right now, you're just dead. Waiting for the undertaker. That's it. Kind of a grimacing view on life, right? That's why she says you're dead meat to begin. What it means is life is consciousness, not matter. And our consciousness is so minute, but it's so powerful, it keeps this big 180, 200-pound machine running. But consciousness is what we are. And we're not living in our conscious state. Consciousness is almost unconscious. You know, it's just we go to sleep and we're out. We wake up after so many hours. You know, sometimes can't remember where we are. You know, or what day it is or what until we get a little bit awake, and then it's just what take care of the paining knee, the aching back, the aching tooth. Just the consciousness of running around, fixing up all the pains. And then that done, then the mind strikes. A little bit of consciousness. We're not living a conscious life. Now you have human life. Try to find out what that consciousness is. Catch that consciousness, what it is. Read about it, learn about it, think about it. Practice the system of awakening consciousness. And then you'll first know there's a conscious world. That is our home. Conscious beings in a conscious world. Now we're on the right path. Then life becomes a bowl of cherries after that. Just moving ahead. Every test is just like the drill sergeant coming along and telling us, a little faster, move ahead. That's all. And we just move ahead. Those tests are just pushing us ahead. I mean, we go out of our way to be tested. People bungee cord. What's it all about? It's just test. Push, and test, climb. I saw this thing. What do they call it? Extreme snowboarding? Holy moly, man. I thought Brumley was wicked. And these guys drop 6,000 feet right down, just like, they're just falling like pieces of paper out of the sky. They create avalanches behind them. Avalanches are catching up with them. Helicopters are standing in the air, and it's just. And sometimes they go down, and they don't get back up. They go out and surf waves 80 foot tall at a place called Mavericks, and another place called Jaws on Maui. And some of them don't come home at the end of the day. And the whole thing is, if you they interview them, it's, why do you do that? This is just the whole psychology. Push yourself, do all you can do, be all you can be at the limit. So it's just like, some test in Krishna consciousness, well, take it on the chin. Just go ahead. Don't get all hung up on the test. Just take the test. Go on with it. People are going out of their way to be tested. They enter these things, what do they call them? Triathlons, they're called. The Ironman. You swim 10 miles, you run 20 miles, you're in a day and night just crossing I think it's in New Zealand. Men and women enter the teams. I mean, man, they get right down to eating bugs in the forest, before it's over. And the whole thing is just to prove that, they can do it. Take the test, So what tests are coming around the devotees that are so horrific? You Americans, we've got a cakewalk, I mean, Russia had some tests. Chant Hare Krishna and go to the, what's it called?
Gulag.
Go to the gulag. Before you go, we'll fry your brain with some electric wires. And there's some devotees that were put in that electric chair 13 or 15 times. Shock treatment on their brains, And then some people were sent off to those prisons, all kind of things. Very, very heavy. That's what this country suffers from. It's too much affluence, too much freedom, too much guarantee. No one can take away religion in this country. Impossible. Whatever it is, you're free to do it. That's not true everywhere else. The government can just take it away. So people value what it is. They value it. And these country devotees don't seem to value what they have. The opportunity they have. Even the wealth, the freedom. This country, all devotees are out working. They're all just everywhere, just doing the middle class America thing, right? And you go across Europe, you get into the third world poverty countries, and they're not doing that. They're not doing that. They have communities, they're doing things, they're trying to make temples. And in some places they are doing that, of course. But not in the proportion. You go to most of the temples in America, there's nobody there from Mangalore with the pujari. And he's paid. This kid like bottom, No, I'm just I'm also part of this country and this place. But I think we take many things for granted. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram.